What happens when one of the biggest stars in entertainment sits down for what should be a routine interview only to face a host who seems determined to tear her down? What happens when professional courtesy gets thrown out the window and personal vendettas take center stage on live television? Today, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that shocked millions of viewers and left Jennifer Lopez walking off one of America's most beloved morning shows. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because this story is about to get intense and you won't want to miss what happens next. The morning started like any other at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Jennifer Lopez arrived at the Today Show studios with her usual entourage looking absolutely stunning in a tailored cream blazer and perfectly styled hair. She was there to promote her latest project, a passion piece she'd been working on for years. The energy backstage was electric. Crew members buzzing with excitement about having such a major celebrity on the show. But something was different about Savannah Guthrie that morning. Studio insiders later mentioned she seemed unusually tense, constantly checking her notes and whispering intensely with producers. There were rumors circulating about ratings pressure and network executives breathing down her neck about making interviews more compelling, more dramatic. Whatever the reason, Savannah appeared to have an agenda that went far beyond the typical promotional chat. As Jennifer settled into the iconic orange chair, she flashed her megawatt smile at the cameras. The audience in the plaza was going wild, holding up signs and chanting her name. Everything seemed perfectly normal as the cameras rolled, and Savannah began with what appeared to be standard pleasantries. "Jennifer, thank you so much for being here with us this morning," Savannah said. But there was something in her tone that felt slightly off. A subtle edge that Jennifer immediately picked up on. "Thank you for having me, Savannah. I'm always happy to be here," Jennifer replied, maintaining her professional composure despite sensing something wasn't quite right. "So, let's talk about your new project," Savannah continued. But instead of diving into the actual details of what Jennifer was promoting, she took an unexpected turn. "You know, Jennifer, you've been in the entertainment industry for over 3 decades now. Some might say you've had more comebacks than most people have careers. How do you keep reinventing yourself when the public seems to move on so quickly?" The question hit like a subtle slap. Jennifer's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but she recovered quickly, her years of media training kicking in. "Well, Savannah, I think what you call comebacks, I call evolution. Artists grow, we change, we explore different aspects of our creativity. That's what keeps art alive and authentic." But Savannah wasn't done. She leaned forward slightly, her expression sharpening. "But isn't it true that some of your recent projects haven't performed as well as expected? Critics have been saying that maybe your time in the spotlight is waning. How do you respond to those who say you're desperately clinging to relevance?" The studio fell silent. Even the crew members exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't the friendly promotional interview everyone had expected. Jennifer's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she maintained her poise. "I'm sorry, but I think there might be some confusion here," Jennifer said, her voice remaining steady, but gaining a slight chill. "I came here to talk about my new project, which I'm incredibly proud of. I'm not sure why we're focusing on negativity when there's so much positive work to discuss." Savannah's response was swift and cutting. "Jennifer, this is journalism. We ask the hard questions here. Surely someone with your experience can handle a little scrutiny. Or are you only comfortable with softball interviews these days?" The tension in the studio was now palpable. Jennifer's publicist, watching from the wings, looked alarmed and started moving toward the producers. But Jennifer held up a subtle hand, signaling she could handle this herself. "Savannah, I've been doing interviews for decades and I've never had a problem answering tough questions when they are relevant and respectful. But this feels less like journalism and more like a personal attack. What exactly are you trying to accomplish here?" "I'm trying to get honest answers from someone who's built a career on image management." Savannah shot back, her mask of professionalism slipping completely. "Your fans deserve to know the real Jennifer Lopez, not just the carefully crafted persona your team wants us to see." Jennifer's eyes flashed with anger, but she kept her voice controlled. "The real Jennifer Lopez is someone who's worked incredibly hard for everything she's achieved. Someone who's broken barriers and opened doors for other Latina women in this industry. If that's not real enough for you, then maybe this interview isn't the right fit." "Oh, so now you're playing the victim card." Savannah pressed, clearly sensing she'd struck a nerve. "You're one of the most privileged people in entertainment, and you want to act like you're somehow being persecuted." That's when Jennifer's composure finally began to crack. She sat up straighter in her chair, her voice gaining strength and conviction. "Privileged. Do you know what it was like being a young Latina girl from the Bronx trying to make it in an industry that told me I wasn't white enough, wasn't Latina enough, wasn't thin enough, wasn't this enough or that enough? Do you know how many doors were slammed in my face before I finally found someone willing to take a chance on me? But that was decades ago, Savannah interrupted dismissively. You can't keep writing that narrative forever. At what point do you take responsibility for your own choices and stop blaming everyone else for your struggles? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jennifer stared at Savannah for a long moment, and viewers could practically see the wheels turning in her head. She was clearly debating whether to continue engaging or to simply walk away. The entire studio held its breath, waiting to see which way this would go. Jennifer's eyes narrowed as she processed what Savannah had just said. The suggestion that she should stop talking about her journey and struggles hit a nerve that went deeper than professional disagreement. This was personal now, and everyone in the studio could feel the shift in energy. You know what, Savannah? Jennifer said, her voice dropping to a dangerously calm tone that anyone who knew her would recognize as a warning sign. I think you've fundamentally misunderstood why I'm here and what this conversation should be about. But more importantly, I think you've misunderstood who you're dealing with. Savannah leaned back slightly, perhaps sensing she'd pushed too far, but her ego wouldn't let her back down now. I understand perfectly well who I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a celebrity who's used to having her every word treated like gospel. But this isn't your personal platform, Jennifer. This is a news program. A news program. Jennifer's voice rose slightly, genuine disbelief coloring her tone. Since when is it news to ambush a guest who came here in good faith to discuss their work? Since when is it journalism to attack someone's character instead of focusing on their achievements? I'm not attacking your character, Savannah replied, though her defensive tone suggested otherwise. I'm asking legitimate questions about your career trajectory and public persona. If you can't handle that level of scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. The audacity of that statement left Jennifer momentarily speechless. Behind the cameras, producers were frantically trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. This was live television, and what was supposed to be a light promotional segment had turned into a full-blown confrontation that was spiraling out of control. Let me get this straight, Jennifer said, her voice gaining momentum like a gathering storm. You think that because I chose a career in entertainment, I somehow forfeited my right to be treated with basic human decency? You think that gives you license to sit here and tear me down on national television for what ratings? Don't be so dramatic, Jennifer, Savannah said dismissively, waving her hand as if brushing away the concern. You're acting like I asked you something completely unreasonable. I'm simply trying to have an honest conversation about your career. Honest? Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. There's nothing honest about what you're doing right now. You came into this interview with a predetermined narrative, didn't you? You decided before I even sat down that you were going to try to make me look desperate or washed up or whatever storyline you thought would make good television. Savannah's face flushed slightly. A tell that Jennifer had hit close to the mark. That's completely false. I prepare thoroughly for all my interviews and I ask the questions that need to be asked. The questions that need to be asked. Jennifer repeated incredulously. By whom? Who decided that it was necessary to question my relevance instead of celebrating the fact that I'm still here, still creating, still breaking new ground after all these years? Who made that editorial decision, Savannah? The host shifted uncomfortably in her chair, clearly not expecting to be put on the defensive. Jennifer, I think you're overreacting to what are standard interview questions. Standard. Jennifer's voice cracked with emotion now, but it was anger, not vulnerability. Is it standard to tell a guest they are desperately clinging to relevance? Is it standard to dismiss someone's life experiences as old narratives they need to move past? Because if that's your standard, then your standards are seriously flawed. Savannah tried to regain control of the conversation, her media training kicking in. Look, I think we're getting off track here. Why don't we talk about your new project and what excites you about it? But Jennifer wasn't having it. The damage was done, and she wasn't about to let Savannah simply pivot away from what had just happened. Oh no, we're not doing that. You don't get to attack me for 5 minutes straight and then casually change the subject when you realize you've crossed a line. That's not how this works. I wasn't attacking you, Savannah protested. But her voice lacked conviction. I was asking tough questions, which is my job. Your job. Jennifer stood up from her chair and the gesture sent a ripple of shock through the studio. Guests didn't stand up during interviews unless something was seriously wrong. Your job is to inform and entertain your audience, not to humiliate your guests. Your job is to create meaningful dialogue, not to score cheap points at someone else's expense. Savannah remained seated, but her posture had become rigid. Jennifer, please sit down. We're in the middle of a live broadcast. I know exactly where we are, Jennifer replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded stages and sets for decades. And I know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to create a moment, aren't you? You're trying to manufacture drama because you think it will go viral, that it will get people talking about your show. The accusation hung in the air like an indictment. Savannah's eyes darted briefly toward the producers off camera, a move that didn't go unnoticed by Jennifer or the viewers who were watching this unfold in real time. That's not true, Savannah said. But her denial sounded hollow even to her own ears. Isn't it? Jennifer pressed on, now fully in control of the moment despite being the one under attack. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you decided that Jennifer Lopez was going to be your sacrificial lamb today. You decided that tearing down a successful Latina woman would make for compelling television. That's a serious accusation, Savannah said, her voice taking on a warning tone. And it's completely unfounded. Is it? Jennifer shot back immediately. Then explain to me why every single question you've asked has been designed to make me look foolish or past my prime. Explain to me why you haven't asked one substantive question about my actual work, my actual achievements, or my actual reasons for being here today. Savannah opened her mouth to respond. But Jennifer wasn't finished. And don't you dare sit there and tell me this is about journalism. Real journalists do their homework. Real journalists ask probing questions that illuminate truth, not questions designed to humiliate their subjects. What you're doing isn't journalism, Savannah. It's just cruelty dressed up as professionalism. The words hit their target with devastating accuracy. Savannah's composure was cracking now, her carefully maintained facade beginning to slip. I resent the implication that I'm not a real journalist. I've been doing this job for years and I take it very seriously. Then act like it. Jennifer fired back without missing a beat. Because right now you're acting like someone who's more interested in creating controversy than seeking truth. And that's not journalism. That's just exploitation. The studio had fallen completely silent except for the hum of the cameras that were still rolling, capturing every second of this unprecedented confrontation. Even the audience outside had gone quiet, sensing that something extraordinary was happening inside the building. Savannah's face had turned a deep shade of red. And for the first time since the interview began, she looked genuinely rattled. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity in television time. Maybe 3 or 4 seconds that felt like minutes to everyone watching. Jennifer, I think you need to calm down, Savannah finally said, and those words would go down as perhaps the worst thing she could have possibly chosen to say in that moment. Jennifer's head tilted slightly, and a dangerous smile played at the corners of her mouth. Calm down. Did you just tell me to calm down? After spending the last 10 minutes trying to tear apart my career and my character on live television, you're telling me to calm down? You're being overly emotional about this. Savannah doubled down, apparently not reading the room at all. I asked you some tough questions and you're having a complete meltdown. This isn't very professional behavior for someone of your stature. The sheer audacity of calling Jennifer unprofessional after what had just transpired left everyone in the studio stunned. Even the cameramen exchanged incredulous looks from behind their equipment. Overly emotional, Jennifer repeated slowly, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more power than any shout could have. Let me tell you something about emotions, Savannah. Emotion is what drives art. Emotion is what connects us to our humanity. And right now, my emotion is telling me that what you've done here today is wrong on every possible level. I was doing my job, Savannah insisted, but her voice had lost all its earlier confidence. She was clearly beginning to realize that this situation had gotten completely out of her control. No, Jennifer said firmly, taking a step closer to Savannah's chair. Your job is to inform your audience. Your job is to ask thoughtful questions that help people understand who your guests are and what they are trying to accomplish. Your job is not to ambush people who trusted you enough to come on your show. Savannah tried one more time to assert her authority. This is my show, Jennifer, and I'll conduct interviews however I see fit. Your show. Jennifer's laugh was sharp and cutting. This stopped being your show the moment you decided to abuse your position as host to try to humiliate a guest. This became something else entirely, something ugly and small and beneath what this program is supposed to represent. The producers were now frantically signaling from off-camera, trying to figure out how to end this segment without making things worse. But Jennifer wasn't done. You want to know what's really unprofessional, Savannah? Unprofessional is inviting someone to promote their work and then spending the entire interview trying to tear them down. Unprofessional is using your platform to settle whatever personal issues you have with successful women. Unprofessional is thinking that good journalism means making your guests feel small so you can feel big. That's not what I was doing, Savannah protested weakly. But even she seemed to know how unconvincing she sounded. Then what were you doing? Jennifer challenged. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you decided that today was the day you were going to take down Jennifer Lopez, and you didn't care how you did it or how it made you look in the process. Savannah's mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. She was completely speechless, something that rarely happened to seasoned television hosts. Jennifer shook her head in disgust. You know what the saddest part about all of this is? You had an opportunity today to have a real conversation with someone who's lived an extraordinary life. Someone who's overcome incredible obstacles to achieve dreams that seemed impossible. You could have asked me about my journey, about the lessons I've learned, about what I want to accomplish next. Instead, you chose to try to make me look foolish for what a few headlines. Savannah started to speak, but Jennifer held up her hand. I'm not finished, Jennifer said with the commanding presence that had made her a star. You want to talk about relevance. You want to talk about someone clinging to their position. Look in the mirror, Savannah. Because what you did here today wasn't the behavior of a confident journalist who's secure in her abilities. This was the behavior of someone who's so desperate to create a viral moment that she's willing to destroy her own credibility to get it. The words hit like physical blows. Savannah visibly flinched and her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her note cards. And you know what else? Jennifer continued, her voice gaining power with each word. You've disrespected every single person watching this show who tuned in expecting to see professional journalism. You've disrespected your colleagues who work hard to maintain the reputation of this program, and you've disrespected yourself in ways that I don't think you even understand yet. Savannah made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Jennifer, I think we should take a commercial break and start over. Jennifer stared at her for a long moment, then slowly shook her head. No, Savannah, we're not starting over because what just happened here can't be undone, and frankly, I don't think you've learned anything from it. You're still looking for a way to spin this, to make it into something other than what it was. She turned toward the camera, addressing the audience directly. To everyone watching at home, I came here today excited to share something I've been working on, something close to my heart. Instead, I was subjected to what can only be described as a character assassination attempt disguised as an interview. This isn't what journalism looks like, and it's not what respect looks like. Turning back to Savannah, Jennifer's expression was one of profound disappointment. I've been in this business for over 30 years and I've sat through thousands of interviews. I've been asked tough questions, challenging questions, uncomfortable questions, and I've always handled them with grace because that's what professionals do. But what happened here today wasn't journalism. It was just mean-spirited and small. She reached down and unclipped her microphone. The simple action carrying enormous symbolic weight. I won't be continuing this interview and I won't be returning to this show as long as. This kind of behavior is considered acceptable. Jennifer, wait. Savannah called out, panic creeping into her voice as she realized the full magnitude of what was happening. But Jennifer was already walking away, her head held high and her dignity intact. As she reached the edge of the set, she turned back one final time. I hope someday you figure out the difference between being a tough interviewer and being a bully, because there is a difference. And today you showed the entire world which one you really are. With that, Jennifer Lopez walked off the Today Show set, leaving behind a stunned host, a shocked crew, and millions of viewers who had just witnessed one of the most dramatic moments in morning television history. The cameras kept rolling for several more seconds, capturing Savannah's mortified expression as she sat alone at the interview desk, the weight of what had just happened settling over the studio like a heavy blanket. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Have you ever seen a celebrity handle an unfair interview situation this powerfully? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. What other celebrity interview moments do you think we should cover?